My name is Moonlit. I'm a partner development manager at Google Play. I specialize in games. I've been with Google for 3 years. Before Google, I was a revenue PM at a mobile gaming company called Scopely. At the time, and also for the 3 years I've been working with Google, one of the most common questions is, how do we monetize in the world of games as a service? But before I jump in, I want to understand you guys better. Show of hands, how many of you have premium games only? Oh, surprising. How many of you have IAP games, in-app purchase games? Great, awesome. So here's the deal. I'm not going to say that everything I'll tell you today is new, but my takeaway, my hope for you to take away from my talk is to think about revenue diversification. Think about different ways to monetize. Think about different ways to design your game to monetize. So I'll talk about 3 different things in the next 30 minutes. First is about LTV, what it is and why it's important. Second, I'll share a list of common in-game monetization designs for game as a service, free-to-play games with in-app purchases. And last, I'll end with some tips about earning in the global market, because as you launch your game with Google Play, it is by default a global business. All right, first LTV. LTV, or lifetime value. Remember the last time you walked into a video game store? Can somebody tell me what is the LTV of a customer in the traditional world of console PC gaming? One game, just one game. What's the LTV of one game? Any guesses? What's the lifetime value of a customer if you buy a game? It's just the price of the game, right? In this old world, it's simple. You make a game, you sell it, transactions done, you make some money, and you move on. But in the world of games as a service, it's a little bit more complex. Your game now, your revenue now is the sum of many microtransactions. Therefore, your player's lifetime value is now heavily affected by 2 things: lifetime value, time, and value. What is time? Time is engagement. So we're going to look into both of these very important elements of LTV. I'm not going to dive into how to calculate it. It's a whole different science. But what we're going to talk about is very high level. How do you increase LTV? By increasing and understanding engagement and the value. For engagement, another question is, how do we track engagement? What does it mean? At Google Play, we look at 2 buckets of things. The first one is hard retention, where the percentage of users who come back to your game the next day, a month later, a week later. And I'll share with you what are some benchmarks by category. The second one is engagement profile. First is frequency, session frequency and session time, which measures how much time a player spends in your game and how often they play. The second one we call the stickiness factor. It's a pretty common standardized industry term, which is DAU divided by MAU, or how likely you're to convert a very infrequent player into a more committed one. So of the 3, retention is king. More so, long-term retention is what we really care about. So on the right-hand side, you can see by broad stroke, the day 30 retention number of core, mid-core, very, very broad stroke, high level, different genres. Most of the games we see fall in the grassy green area. You want to aspire to be in the forest green on top. And as I mentioned, we care about long-term retention because the more time a player spends in your game, that's more opportunities for you to monetize. And the more time they spend in the game also signal that they are committed to you and to your game. So these fans are also more likely to pay higher, to pay more. On the graph on the right-hand side, we plotted the top grossing games on Google Play. This is retention over time grouped by top 10 grossing, top 100, top 1,000. As you can see, good retention is strictly correlated with revenue potential as well. So my recommendation for you is to really think about how to design your game to create a long-term experience. Think about when people churn, why do they churn? How do you prevent churn? And remember, more engagement, more time spent means more LTV. Now, let's talk about the second element of LTV, the value element. We look at churn for a lot of the players and found that the churn between a person who never spends and the person who spends the very first dollar drops off immediately, and it plateaus after that. What this shows me is that the most important dollar a player can spend in your game is the very first one, which is unfortunately also the most difficult hurdle to overcome. But some of the mechanics I'll show you later will address this. I think David also mentioned this. Past spending is also the best predictor of future spending patterns. Again, reaffirms why that first dollar is very, very important. When the person spends once, but not again, actually we see a 30 to 40% drop-off. I think it's 40 to 50 actually, drop-off between the first purchase and second and third. So if you think about the spending behavior of somebody who buys once, but not again, but continues to spend time in your game, they're becoming more like a non-buyer to you. So when you have special offers for that first dollar conversion, also have something similar for the special second and third conversion later down in the game. Are you guys familiar with the concept of price elasticity? Anybody know what this is? Awesome. It's just a very fancy way of saying different willingness to pay. So let me give you an example. What's your name? Atkin. Okay. How much, if I want to buy your shoes, how much would you sell it for? $50. What's your name? If. Would you buy that for $50? Would you buy $50? Would you? Anybody want to buy for 40, 30? So here's the idea. For the exact same item, different people have different willingness to pay. And that's why somebody asked earlier, do we need to test different prices? The answer is yes. And what do we test for? So on this graph, you can see the negative correlation between price and quantity. You want to test different price points such that the area under the curve, or price times quantity, is maximized. And that's your revenue maximizing point, price point. But another question is, when you A/B test prices, when players feel like, oh, how come I get this for $5, but he gets for $3? So here's a trick. When you test different price points, also have different in-game items. So the price per item is fixed, but you bundle different items at different price points. It's a way to gauge where are users more likely to take out the wallet and spend, even though they're buying fundamentally different things. Make sense? Okay. So a lot of these games have an IAP store in the game, where you surface different points, different prices, different SKUs for different players. So think about managing this as managing a real retail store like Whole Foods. You want to keep it new, keep it refreshed, keep it fresh for users to come back, build a habit of checking it, see what's going on. So this is one of the, actually Mike's previous company, Congregate game. So what they did is that they will vary the items in the store based on different things. Time-based, there are different promotions based on time of the year, time of the week. Progression-based, sometimes you offer different things for people at different part of the game. And also, they have temporary promotions and more permanent ones. So really think about managing it to keep it engaging. It's almost like a store in itself. Now, the most important question you want to ask when you design anything with a price tag on it is, why would my players buy this? Are they buying it out of frustration were buying out of it because it gives them more premium experience, it gives them more delight. And my vote's for the latter. Anything with a price tag component should be aimed to enhance the player's in-game experience. You also want to show them why they want to buy it. So it's not very clear with the virtual goods, what's the purpose of that. So a lot of people have encouraged users to try out premium currency or premium item as part of the tutorial, just to showcase the value. Again, the value of the items you're selling. Another one is timing is very important. Think about why, right? If you have an item that offers to extend the gameplay, surface it when the game ends. So timing the surfacing with the player's need. Next, I want to touch on some quick high-level lessons about live ops. You guys heard of live ops, live operations? To do it well, oftentimes you do need a dedicated team or even one person to run it. But I want to share some high-level insights and learnings that can help you think about increasing engagement and increasing value, again, ultimately to increase your LTV. So live ops has 3 interrelated elements: content, event, and sales. And of the 3, content is king. It powers both events and sales. For events, there are 2 types of things you can run. The first one is called the core game loops event, where you have time-limited goals and achievements to encourage players to replay part of the existing core gameplay. So for example, for strategy games, is to redo the boss raids. For RPG, is to replay something. And for puzzle games, is to increase the life so you can try different levels again. And if you have the ability to dynamically introduce pieces of new content, we call this the dynamic content, where you introduce side missions, additional new content for the players to try, but again, with a time-limited fashion. The second idea about sales is that it doesn't always have to be about IAP discounts, which often will inflate your in-game economy. So think about running sales as a way to bundle your existing IAP options with something extra in the item, in the SKU. So for example, for strategy games, sometimes they throw in a free builder for a limited period of time if you purchase certain IAP. And for RPG and puzzle, think about different ways you can make the content more interesting on top of IAP discount. Now, I'll share with you a collection of some of the most common in-game designs. Again, most of these will probably be very familiar to you, but my goal is to give you some new ideas and think about different ways to innovate. Starter back, somebody mentioned this earlier. It's by far the most effective way to convert that first dollar. A lot of games offer a bundle of items at a huge discount, 40% or more. The goal is to encourage that very first buy. Timing is very important too. The first 7 days after install is the golden period to surface starter pack. And as I mentioned earlier about the second purchase, think about using a second purchase starter pack if a player buys something but stops buying but continues to stay with your game for a longer period of time. Many developers also make it time limited to showcase scarcity to encourage purchase, again, within the first 7 days. Premium content. David mentioned earlier that premium content by itself does not quite work. But think about instead of premium content as in pay to play the game, period, about any pieces of content in your game can have a premium version of it. Premium clothes, premium maps, premium powers. So think about breaking out different pieces of your game and have a premium level of that. Social spending is when we have higher willingness to pay. We're buying an item as a gift to your friends, not for yourself. So this concept also applies for mobile games as well. Games with guilds or social elements, sometimes let user purchase a premium item that will actually benefit their friends. Competition is very important. It's one of the drivers why people will purchase. Earlier, David mentioned that when you have vanity items, it's most effective in a more PvP setting. It's not just so that you can showcase your unique personality and style, but it also works really, really well if these vanity items also signal strength and skills. So level 1 item will look very different from level 100. And for games with competition as an element, that signal, that social proof is very important and can be a driver for good monetization design. Power-ups is a pretty common one, most often seen in casual games. This is when players are especially stuck on a certain level. And again, your goal is to help them spend more time in your game in a longer period of time. So when they're stuck, the best way to help them overcome that, and power-up is a way to help them progress faster in a more difficult or even earlier in game. Customization, as mentioned earlier, mostly effective in PvP games. But even in games that's not strictly social, people do spend money when they think about this, have different ways to represent their styles. One of the very popular genre right now is interactive story games. You can argue it's very much a single-player experience. But when I'm faced with a choice to wear something very plain or really customize the character to showcase who I am inside, that money comes not that big of a deal anymore. Extended gameplay is another way to think about monetizing. This is very often used in games that's time-limited or it's skill-based. So this is also often seen not just as IAP, but also as rewarded ads. Since it's a very quick way to extend gameplay, give players a little bit extra to help them push them over that hurdle. Some games also have this very direct way to pay as a way to shortcut leveling. So instead of grinding for months or weeks and months a day, they can pay a small amount instead to speed up at a very early stage. I only recommend this if you have a lot of content already out for the game. So think about a strategy game or some PvP games where everybody's up here. I just joined the game, I want to catch up to them. That is one way to do that. But if you don't have a lot of content, and if you have a premium option to help players fast forward the game, they might run out of content and they might churn. So really think about balance the time and the value element of your game design. Now the next two designs, monetization designs, are not strictly in-app purchases, but it's a trend that we've seen are picked up by game developers from around the world. The first one is designing subscription as a way to engage the high-value players. So think of subscription not as a content bundle, but as a VIP program, like the airline mileage program. It's used to really amplify the players' time and value, and especially IAP spending. We call these the multiplier for IAP. So this is a game called Legendary Game of Heroes by Network. They have a VIP program that's evergreen, and everything you do in-game gives you VIP points, whether it's to complete a challenge or purchase some IAP items. And as you accumulate more points, you also unlock more benefits. And you have to be a VIP, a subscriber, to activate these benefits. They've seen incredible retention. So actually, this is true for many other mobile game developers who have in-game subscription implemented. They often reported a higher retention, but also higher LTV. Again, remember, more time spent, longer period of time leads to higher LTV. The second one is rewarded ads. For this one, just think about, the trick here is think about how to optimize it, how to incorporate in your game design so it's more effective. So the framework I use have 4 different elements. The first one is placement. Where do you place it? The recommendation from Congregate is that the rewarded ads should be core to your gameplay. The reward itself should be meaningful, but not competing directly with the IAP. The second one is targeting. Who can see it? And the answer is that everybody should have access to rewarded ads. But recommendation is that user should initiate the experience. But again, you should test this out, as David said earlier. There's no one right answer for all the games. The third one is cadence. How often should a user watch rewarded ads? Congregate tested many things and found that 6 to 8 ads per viewer per day maximizes return. And the last one is measurement. How do you know your rewarded ads is working as intended? So they cohort their user base based on these two metrics: ad viewership and frequency. Who's watching it and how often are they watching it? Track your core metrics, the retention, engagement, buyer retention, or buyer conversion metrics I mentioned earlier, by these two cohorts. And you want to see if they behave differently if they watch too many ads or no ads at all. All right. Next, I'll share some tips about going global with Google Play. We know when you launch your game with us, your game is by default available, if you make so, available all over the world. And different players, besides different price points, also have their preferred way of payment. Credit cards here, WeChat in different places, PayPal. But for Google Play, we try to find different ways to let users pay with the form of payment where they're most comfortable. So these are some of the latest stats on where things are available and how many countries they're available in. So we take care of the billing part so you can focus on making the game. Now, when you launch your game, you have the store listing page. It is the very first thing the players will see when they come into your game. So making sure that your store listing page is appealing, it's relevant culturally, and it's relevant in the local language is very, very important. So here are some tips about how to manage your storefront so that when a user comes in, they're more likely to install the game. I'm not going to go through each of these. You can read through it. But what I do suggest is I use the store listing experiments, free and available in the Google Play console, to really test what kind of icons have the highest conversion, what kind of screenshots, what kind of short description and long description. You might be surprised by what you find. Remember this graph from earlier? Price elasticity is also true. It varies country by country as well. So what that means is, for many countries, even $1 is a little bit too much. So we have this option for sub-dollar pricing in many, many emerging markets. The exchange rate here is a little outdated, but the point here is that exchange rates fluctuates. People's willingness to pay fluctuates. So it's a lot of work for you to pay attention to these fluctuations and think about different ways and different price points. So Google Play console has a pricing template that you can use, will automatically update these for you. But when you think about pricing in emerging markets, consider lower the lowest point of SKU such that these players who can't afford higher price item can still take out their wallet and purchase your items. Here's a case study from a Vietnamese developer called Beshimov. When they launched sub-dollar pricing in their game, they were able to triple their buyers and triple the number of transactions. So really think about meeting your players where their willingness to pay is. The very last thing is, it's not only about the absolute price points, but also how the price looks matters too when it comes to conversion. A lot of things in America, things ending 99 cents. It's not true in Asia, not true in China, not true in Korea, not true in Japan. So when you think about prices, just doing the pure conversion of the exchange rate might make the end price look really weird for the local user. So not just convert your prices, but think about localizing and culturalizing your prices as well. One takeaway from my talk: running a game as a service, the most important thing is think about how to increase your player's lifetime value. And the two factors that mostly affect your total LTV, time and value, which it converts to engagement and value. For engagement, think about retention, think about session frequency, session time, think about stickiness factor, and for value, think about that first dollar conversion and second buyer conversion. All right. Thank you so much.